I came back to Yokohama last week, and when I got back, holy crap! It's spring here. Cherry blossoms have blossomed. I missed it because I was in Thailand. I missed the cherry blossoms this year. But out there right now, it's beautiful in spring. I'm wearing short sleeve shirt. Put all my winter clothes away. Woohoo! Spring, summer, here we go. And speaking of spring and summer, I want to talk to you about schedules. We're going to talk a little bit about the game. And the big announcement, I have to pull up because I want to get these dates right. I need to pull up my schedule real quick. Let's see here. I got so many windows on my screen. And none of them have the information that I want. That's my little I don't know what's going on song. Wow, the internet is really slow for me today, which is weird because I'm streaming. Maybe the streaming is why the internet is slow. That would make a certain amount of sense. All right, I'm opening up the official sheet. All right, so basically, the team came back at me and said, damn it, Chris, we need a schedule. And I was like, yeah, we do. That's a good thing to have. And I've been resistant to having a hard schedule up till now because there's this part of making a game where you just don't know, is this a good idea? Is this fun? Is this... And we had to get through that period. We had to get through that period of... Because one of the failures you can make in a game is you can say, like, this is the day that this game is going to be done, and we're going to ship it on this date, whatever the hell it looks like. And you can do that. You can ship games like that. You ship shitty games like that. But if you get to a point in your schedule where you say, hey, this thing is not fun, and just finishing out the schedule and shipping it on time when it's not fun, that's just going to be a waste of time and money. That's a bad thing. And so what I did for like the first year of this project was essentially say, look, we're not going to have a hardcore schedule. We're not going to tell you when you have to have stuff done. We're just going to futz around with this until it's fun. We are now fun. Well, it's a good game now. We're having fun with it. We're enjoying it. And at this point, I think the major portions of the game are in place. I don't think we're going to make any huge adjustments to the game in the sense that, like, oh, it's not going to be a strategy game or anything. You know, there's certainly other things that we need to do to make the game better. There's changes that are coming. But the form that the game is in right now is roughly the form that the game is going to take. And now that we're in that place, I can start doing things like building campaign missions. You know, one of the questions that the team has always had for me is, how come we don't have more missions? How come we talk about single campaign. How come you haven't built the single player campaign yet? Well, if you don't know what your gameplay is yet, you don't build the campaigns yet, right? Because then you have to go back and build them again. So we didn't build all the campaigns and blah, 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 blah. So we actually are now at the place where we can start doing that. And now I can say, all right, let's put a schedule together. Now, the most important date on the schedule, and the one that you guys really, really care about, is actually May 18th. That's about 5 or 6 weeks from now. It's about 6 weeks, like 5.5 weeks from now. That is when those of you who are in the earlier access beta group get to play this game. And I'm going to hold to that date. I've officially set that date in the SAM. We're going to have that date happen. Honestly, we could probably give some of you guys the game right now and you would understand it. But I want to make sure that when we get it in the hands of people that it's something that's really fun, it's something that's really interesting, and it actually represents what we're trying to do, so that the feedback that we get from you guys is useful feedback. So I wanted to give ourselves a little bit of time to put that together. We've got about 6 weeks to put that together. And so on the 18th, those of you who are enrolled in our beta earlier access program will have access to the game. How do I get on that program, you might ask? Well, thanks for asking. Number one, you're doing it right now. Hanging out here in this live stream gets you Boomzap bucks or points or whatever. I don't know what we call them. The widget thing that we give away here. You get points if you watch me talk. Or, you could turn the volume off and go do something else and let this sit and lurk. You could cheat like that. It's up to you. But anyway, if you watch this stream, you get points. If you get a certain number of points, I forget how many, Monica will put it in the stream. When you get to a certain number of points, then you get to be in our program. Other way that you could do it, go to our Discord. Monica is going to put the link to the Discord there in the stream. Of course, all of you are already in the Discord, so, but, if you're watching this, like, as a video or something, then maybe Monica will put it in the info box down there. You click on our Discord, go to our Discord, chat in our Discord, talk to us about our game, talk to us about your life. I don't care what you talk about, but come talk about stuff so our Discord doesn't look so dead and empty. That will also get you levels, and when you get to, I believe it's level 15, then you can, then you're in. Also, if you were a beta tester for Callasia, you're already in. So that's it. Those are the 3 ways that you can be part of that program. And on the 18th of May, which is the deadline for being that, then you can come in and play with our game. So that's going to happen, absolutely. We're talking about the mechanics by which it happens. I believe we're going to do the whole thing through Steam. So if you want to be part of the program, you got to be on Steam. But come on, it's in the modern world, all of you people are on Steam, so that shouldn't be a problem. But anyway, we'll deliver the builds through Steam and blah blah blah. So from here on out, that'll be the way we do that. So there's that. So when do you actually go into early access is the next question. Well, thanks for asking. Right now, I'm tentatively planning sometime around the middle to the end of July. I have a date. I don't want to announce the exact date right now because I don't want anyone to get all butthurt if we don't hit it. But somewhere around middle to end of July is when we'll have the actual early access build. And that will be an early access build that the whole world can play with a early access trailer and on Steam and all that other good stuff. So we're targeting July for that. It's going to be a long, hard walk between here and there. So the next question is, well, what's in early access? What's the difference between an early access build and the final build? Well, the big difference is going to be levels. We got a lot of campaign to build, and the early access build will not have the full campaign in it. It'll have some of the campaign in it. And we will be doing, and we're committing from the time that we put out the beta build to an update every 2 weeks. So we'll put out the beta build on the 18th of May, and then every 2 weeks after that, we're releasing an updated build. And one of those 2-week updates will be the early access update. And then once early access is out, we're committing to another every 2 weeks of builds and whatnot. So what we end up doing is slowly distributing the campaign over the period of early access. So as we get those new updates through early access, you'll get new levels, new campaign levels, updates to the old campaign levels, blah, blah, blah. We are actually treating early access like a real early access. I think a lot of companies are like, we're going to do early access, and then they give you like the full game at early access, but it's just buggy. Our early access is actually early access. The whole game won't be there yet. When will the whole game be there? Well, actually, the whole game will be there sometime around October. That's the current date. Again, I don't want to give you an exact day, but sometime around early October, we hope to deliver the full game, which will have the full campaign in it. It'll have, everything there, blah, 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 blah. So there is another date, right? So we have May 18th. Absolutely, that's going to be earlier access beta. We have sometime mid-July for early access. And then we have sometime early to mid-October will be the full launch. There is a date after that, and this is something that I know some of you may not like so much, but it's a decision that we made internally last week. We're going to do the editor after the full launch. So actually, we are still committed to putting an editor in the game and making the editor available to everybody. But the problem is actually not the editor. The problem is all the stuff that goes with the editor. Once you say, let's say we let you build a level, there are a lot of questions about what kind of level gets built. Obviously, number one, did you draw a big penis? Because that's the first thing everybody does when they make levels. Absolutely, you will make big penises. That's what happens. So we have to make sure you're not making penises. Second, is your level actually playable? And I don't mean, is it fun? I mean, is it literally playable? Do you have places for everyone to start? Do you have enough buildings in the level to produce enough gold to make the level fun? Are there big hunks of the level that can't be gotten to because you've surrounded them with mountains, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of ways to make an unplayable level in this game. And so I don't want the game to be full of unplayable levels because people just go to the editor and be, this is all garbage. I don't want to play any of this. It's literally unplayable. Not just not fun, but literally unplayable. The next question is, well, what if it's playable but it's crap and it's not fun? Some guy just spawned a bunch of crap in and put some stuff in and was like, hey, here's my level. Blah, blah, blah. So there's all of that, and we have to fight all of that and try to figure out a way that people who are making good levels can have those levels sort of rise to the top, and that you can see those levels and blah 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 blah. And there's a whole system that has to be built for that, and we could talk about that system later, but it involves actually having a rating system so that you can rate both the map maker and rate the maps themselves, and maps that get higher rated get moved up in the chart, and that there's a second curated group of levels where if I don't want to look at all the garbage, I only want to look at the levels that have been curated and picked by the community and blah blah blah. There's a whole system that needs to be put in place. I'm not going to talk about in detail right now, but the point is it's a big system, and we got a lot of game to make between now and October. A lot of campaign levels to make, a lot of gameplay that goes into those campaign levels. There's a lot of corner cases. What happens when you do this in a campaign? What happens when you use this unit like this? And blah, 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 blah. All of that is a lot of work. And we said, you know what? Let's take the editor community map building bit, stick it back a little bit. Let's ship that as downloadable content after we ship the game. Let's focus down on the single player game right now. And for those of you who are like, well, Chris, it's multiplayer, not single player you should be focusing on. Actually, this is something we learned from Callasia. Those of you who played Callasia, and most of you did, the problem is people come in and they want to play multiplayer. And there's nobody in the multiplayer chat room. There's nobody waiting for a multiplayer game. And they say, oh, I guess there's no multiplayer here. And then they leave. And because of that, there's never been any multiplayer. And it's a cycle. It works like that. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that people are playing the game. They're actively playing the game. They're into the game. They've got something to do in the game if there's not a multiplayer game available. That's single player. And I think we discounted that in Callasia, and our single player missions were not fun enough. They were not detailed enough. They were not deep enough. There wasn't enough lore. There wasn't enough fun for single player, because we counted on multiplayer to be the thing that kept the game alive. We can't do that again. Well, what I need to do is I need to make sure that when people come to Last Regiment and they are looking for multiplayer, there's at least a lot of people listed as being online and playing, and then they can say, oh, look, there's a bunch of people online and playing. Maybe some of them want to play multiplayer. So there's a whole thing there that we need to build. And because I need to concentrate on that between now and October, I want to take the community building, map building thing and say, look, let's put that in a bucket. Let's make sure that when we ship the game in October, we have a nice selection of kick-ass, fun, interesting maps. And, we can certainly build those. And then release the editor as a DLC later. Now, whether or not that's a paid DLC is still in discussion. I don't actually want to use it as a revenue generating tool. I would rather give it out as a free DLC just to say, look, hey, you bought our game and it's been 2 months, and by the way, we're looking at shipping it about 2 months after ship, so it would be sometime in late November, maybe early December. I'd like to just say, look, here, have this for free for being a good user. Enjoy it. This is a great new update. This is the editor update. Have fun. And I'm tempted to do that. The only reason I might put a cost on it, I might put a little tiny cost on it just to keep people from making crap levels. Maybe if you paid $1 or $2 for the, and come on, it's $2. It's the cost of a cup of coffee. If you care enough to pay the $2, maybe you care enough to actually build a level. That's the only reason I'm thinking of putting a very small cost on it. I don't know. I'm debating that. I don't have a good answer to that right now. Another interesting question that people have had now that we're talking schedules and release and stuff like that is, how much is this game going to cost? There was a study done of Steam games recently where they asked, where did most of the revenue on Steam come from? Where did most people make their money on Steam? It was actually not freemium games. It was also not cheap games. Actually, the majority of the money made on Steam was sold at two specific price points, $20 and $60. This is where games are really making money, is at $20 and at $60. And I believe in this, honestly. We've been working on this game. I mean, I've had a team of people working on this game for more than a year already, and by the time we're done, it'll be more than 2 years. And I feel like, hey, look, if you're putting out a top-notch strategy game that, a team of 8 to 10 people have been working on for 2 years, pricing that at $5 doesn't make any damn sense to me. I believe that's worth $20. I don't believe it's worth 60. I think 60 is a very high price point, and I'm not sure what game is worth 60 these days when there's so much competition at the $3 price point. But at $20, I believe in it. And it's Steam. There'll be Steam sales. If you're not willing to pay $20, there's half price sales and stuff like that. You can get it cheaper. But I think the price point of this game is going to be $20. I believe in that as a price point. And so right now, I'm not 100% committed to it, but right now the thinking in the studio is that this game is going to be a $20 game. There will be downloadable content later. This is not in the model of I'm gonna cripple the game and then make you pay for it in parts, but later on, I think we're going to want to add new factions and add new units and add new campaigns and stuff like that. And so I would like to do a $20 game with later on something like $5 DLCs of new campaigns and new stuff like that. Now, over in chat, there's some people talking, and I'm sorry I haven't been responding to chat. I'm trying to be very focused so that Monica can cut this easily. But I do want to respond to a couple things people are saying in chat. A couple people are like, yeah, I pay $20, no problem. But somebody says $20 feels fair, provided you ship with balanced factions and PvP maps that are balanced and fun to play. And I agree with that comment. And so one of the questions that people have been asking is, what do I get for my $20? Well, they haven't actually asked that because I haven't told them it's $20 before. But people are asking, all right, if you're talking about this is the real release of the game, what is the real release of the game? So I can give you some metrics now about what the real game looks like. Last week, I added in 2 more factions and altogether about 20 units. And I looked at the units and I looked at what we've got. Right now we have, I believe, I have it written down here, 108. We have 108 units in the game right now. And that's some of those units are units that like this transforms into that or this summons that or something like that. So if you just look at the menu of units that you can select for your regiment, it's not 108, it's like 90 something. But there's also units that are like this unit can summon these guys and that's the only way you can get them, or they transform into this, that's the only way they can get it, something like that. Overall, there's 108 units in the game. I feel like that's more than enough for this game. That's a lot of options. Out of those 108 units, 10 of them are heroes, and those heroes have factions. So like Tristan or Zilvera or whatever, each one of those factions has 4 special units that can only be brought with that faction. So that's what, of the 108 units, 40 of them are special faction units. It's actually a little bit more because a couple of them are units that can only be summoned by special faction units. So the math gets a little wonky. But anyway, the general idea is you've got 10 factions and a little over 100 units. And I think for our full release, that's enough. So I'll probably add a couple more units as we find, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had this one specific thing? I might add a couple of those over the next few months. But something in the 100-ish, 110-ish unit group, and definitely 10 factions. I'm done adding factions. There aren't going to be any new factions. These are the factions you get. So when you get the full game in October, it will come with 10 factions and something like 100 units. How big is the single player mission, you may ask? Well, we're writing it right now, and the way and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but the quick answer is something like 40 missions. Not exactly 40, it may be a little less or a little bit more. Something like 40 missions is what it will end up. And we're finding that each one of those missions is probably going to take, depending on the mission you're playing, between half an hour to 2 hours to play. So average out, call it 40 hours of gameplay. So for your $20, you get multiplayer, you get 100 units, you get 10 factions, and you get something like 40 hours of single player game. I feel that's fair. So, as they say in the chat group, at 100 different units and ignoring the factions, which changes the math, that leaves, something like 800 billion different options for armies. Yeah, I would read that, but there's no commas in that number, so I can't actually tell you how many options that is. But yeah, it's a lot. Now, realistically, it's not really that many because, you wouldn't bring an army that was just all peasants and craftsmen, for instance. I mean, there's There's going to be a limited number of builds that make sense. But that limited number of builds that make sense is still going to be in the hundreds of thousands of interesting builds that you can make. And what we're going to be doing through the early beta process and through the early access process is making sure that all of those units have some value, that there aren't any that are throwaway units, that there aren't any that are like, oh, you have to take this unit because it's the best unit and you always have to take this one. I mean, it's a little bit like a card game, that getting to that place is just going to take time. It's just going to take testing. It's going to take people finding out, hey, did you know this is really overpowered? And one of the reasons we're doing a nice big long early access is I don't feel too bad about making huge changes to the balance during early access. Like, once you release the game, if you're like nerf something really hard, everybody gets all butthurt and they're like, ah, that was my favorite unit and you nerfed it and this game's crap. No, they're going to do that anyway. But they'll do it a little less if it's early access. The other reason they'll probably, hopefully, do this a little less is we're not a free-to-play game. So, you know, you think about Hearthstone or a game like that. Somebody spent a lot of time getting that particular dragon, and when I say time, I mean they bought a lot of packs and spent a lot of money. So if somebody spent $500 trying to get one unit because that one unit created their strategy and that strategy was the way that they managed to get up to legend, yeah, they're going to be pretty cheesed off when you nerf that one unit. But in our game, well, you already have all the units. It's not a free-to-play game. When you buy the full game, you got all 100 and something units. So if I make one of them a little less powerful or one of them a little more powerful, it's not quite as stick in the eye as it is in a game like Hearthstone, because it's not like you paid extra money for that unit. You can shift your strategies around and everybody can shift their strategies around. That's the theory and that's the hope. So that is a huge download of information about our schedule. I hope that is interesting for you.